Hey, what's going on? It's Joey Myers from the Hitting Performance Lab, and in this rotational versus linear hitting mechanics video, we're going to answer the reader question of what is the best to teach, a rotational swing or a linear swing. We're going to go over a few things. We're going to talk about how the swing is both and then some. We're going to bring up a few human movement principles, like the conservation of linear versus angular momentum, talk about planes of motion, and then centripetal versus centrifugal forces. These are big words, but I'm going to do my best to give you a picture in your head to understand these a little bit more fully. Plus, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can read or there'll be links to videos, PBS, circus physics videos that are really, really good. They're only 2 minutes long, and they give you a really good example of, or give you a good understanding of what these rules and laws are. So let's first start with that the swing is both and then some. And the reason I say this is because a linear swing, if it were going to be a purely linear swing or a purely rotational swing, people that teach pure, okay, a purely linear movement would be if the hitter was standing straight this way and was going to swing this way. That's purely linear, okay? Or even like this. That would be purely linear. How many hitters do you see that swing like that? Probably not any. Purely rotational would be super wide. We wouldn't see any hip movement at all forward. We wouldn't see zero hip movement forward. Try looking for a video on that, by the way. I bet you'll never find it. I'll even give you a couple clues. Albert Pujols, look at videos with him. Put your finger, before he starts his swing, I want you to put your finger on the video screen where his hips start and see where they end up. I guarantee you his hips are forward from where you put your finger, okay, or your mouse if you're watching this on PC, okay? So we would see zero hip movement, zero head movement. We would just be basically picking the foot up, putting it down, and we would see just turning around. It would just be a turnaround, okay? Those would be purely rotational, purely linear. You can argue with me about it, but after this video, after I've explained exactly what science says linear momentum is, or angular or rotational momentum is, I think you'll be singing a different tune. If not, then it's willful ignorance when we got science to be able to look to, human movement principles that are validated by science. So the conservation of linear momentum, okay, all hitters, we're going to see some sort of linear momentum, some sort of forward momentum, some sort of forward movement, aggressive movement forward towards the pitcher. Okay, we're sideways in our swing. We don't stand straight like this like a pitcher does. Okay, pitchers are a little bit more linear than hitters are, but pitchers have angular elements as well, rotational angular momentum elements as well. So with hitters, we're standing sideways. We're going to have most hitters have some sort of stride, whether it's a toe tap, whether it's a medium to high leg kick, whether it's a slide step, whatever it is, most hitters will gain ground with their front foot. If they do not, we will see a hitter almost like a golfer would. So you see golfers don't stride, but you'll see them sit here, you'll see them shift and go. Basically what they're doing is they're shifting foot pressure, okay? So they're shifting outside of the back foot, inside of the front foot, and you're just reversing this for a lefty. As you go into your turn, as you start to turn, then that foot pressure will shift to the opposite side of the foot. So whereas the back foot was outside, it'll go inside. That's why we see the back foot peel off and come forward sometimes, or towards the plate or behind the hitter or up on the toe, because we see that shifting foot pressure from outside to inside, and the front foot goes from inside at landing to outside during the turn. Shifting foot pressure. So you could be wide, no stride like an Albert Pujols. You're still going to see his hip shift forward, but you're going to see that shifting foot pressure. He's still using linear momentum. He's still using an element of linear momentum. Whether you agree with that or not, I don't know. There's no hope for you if you don't. But the other side of the coin is what we're doing is we're shifting, or we're transferring linear momentum into angular momentum or turning momentum, okay? So not only are we, whether we're wide, no stride, or we actually have a stride, as we touch down, that linear movement stops. We might get a little bit with the hand. We don't want the hands to come forward first. We want to actually pivot as we come through. This is where the rotational side or the angular side comes in. But what we're going to see is we're going to see this forward movement stop, and it's going to transfer into angular momentum. Think about the ice skater. When she's spinning in place, she has her arms out, she's spinning slower, arms in, she's spinning faster. Okay? What that is there's two different things that are acting there, and they're in inverse relationship. So you have angular velocity or turning speed, right? Turning speed increases when you're here. Then you have moment of inertia, which is inertial mass. Okay, her inertial mass goes down when she comes in like this. She spins faster, but her mass is smaller. When she comes out, in order to slow down, she pulls her arms out to decrease her speed, her turning speed, and to increase her mass. If she increases her mass, she slows down. Okay, so with hitting, it's very, very similar. We get to our landing, our linear momentum gets transferred into angular, and then from angular we turn into more the ice skater. We start to see more bend in the front arm. I believe more bend in the front arm at the start. Not a big bend, but slight bend as we turn, because we want to be the ice skater turning quickly. We want to get that barrel on plane as soon as possible. Okay, in front of that catcher's glove. You watch most hitters in slow motion. Put your favorite hitter, Josh Donaldson, slow motion swing on YouTube. Watch where his barrel comes in front, or Sierra Romero on the girl side. Watch that barrel as it comes in front of the catcher's glove, almost hits the catcher's glove. And then they come here. So they're getting that barrel in pitch plane as soon as possible. And then what they'll do, depending on pitch location, the timing, the speed, whatever, they will eventually move to an extended front arm. If it's outside, it's low, more on the slower perceived velocity. If you're looking at effective velocity, Perry Husband's effective velocity, on a lower pitch, you're going to see more of an extended front arm. Outside pitch, maybe more of an extended front arm. Not always true, but you're going to see that versus an inside pitch or a higher pitch, which is a higher perceived velocity. If we're looking at Perry Husband's effective velocity, we might see more of a bent front arm at impact. A higher pitch, more bent front arm at impact. Okay, but what's happening is that hitter is using the conservation of angular momentum, conserving angular speed or conserving moment of inertia. Whatever it is to get this barrel on that ball, that's all that brain's trying to do, but it's using the body in order to get what it needs to get. So the swing is both linear and rotational. And what we'll find at the end here is actually there's a little bit of this, I said, and then some, which means that there's going to be more of a linear element at impact to past impact, which we'll talk about. But it's also, we're talking about planes of motion. Okay, so with planes of motion, there's three main planes of motion. There's front to back. Think about a lunge, a front lunge, or a back lunge, or a squat. That's on the front to back plane. You have a side to side plane, which is what we do, what us hitters do. So think about a side lunge, think about a hitter, right? And then the other plane of motion is twisting. So we got twisting here. Okay, so whether we're talking about a wide receiver that's on the line, that's getting ready to run a route, they're going to start on the front to back plane. They're going to run their 5 yards hard, and then they're going to plant with the bent leg, and they're going to go sideways. And in order to change planes, we have to push into the ground. So that stride or that plant leg isn't planted straight and then pushed off that way. It's planted bent and then pushed off and get straight when they change planes. With hitting, we're using not the front to back and side to side like a wide receiver. We're using the side to side and twisting planes. So in order to change planes, you have to land bent. So for hitting, what we're going to see is we go linear momentum gets transferred into angular, but now we got to change planes. So now we have to go from this position, this side to side, into a twisting motion. Okay, we're using those two planes of motion. So you can't say that the swing is purely linear. Even bringing up linear hitters. Ichiro, he's not a purely linear hitter. Yeah, he might have more linear elements to his swing than, say, a Josh Donaldson, but he still has rotational elements. In order to square up this bat from a sideways position and still be linear, I mean, you'd have to be in this, you have to start in this position, but now when you turn, I mean, now we're starting to turn, you see his chest turn this way. He doesn't just go sideways from the right side, we turn the field around. He doesn't just go sideways and go like this and go. That's not what happens. He actually turns his hips, he turns everything else. So we have a hybrid of both. There's no way you can say it's purely rotational or it's purely linear. It's a little bit of both. The last piece that I wanted to talk about, and this is the and then some, the swing is both and then some, is centripetal versus centrifugal forces. Centripetal is center seeking, and centrifugal is center fleeing. Picture if I had a rock dangling on a string and I started circling that rock around, okay? So what's happening is that rock is exerting a force on that the string into my finger. The rock's trying to creating tension into my hand, or center seeking, right? This is the center, this is what's swinging the rock around. Now, if I let that rock go in a direction, it's going to go off in a tangent, which is centrifugal, center fleeing force. It's going to go around. So we're going to see centripetal force in the beginning of the turn. So as we land, we start to turn. We're holding on to the bat here. We're circling, right? Think Nike swoosh barrel path. We're circling it around. Centripetal forces, center seeking, pulling in. Then at impact, what we're trying to do is we're trying to have the barrel chase the ball. So now we're kind of simulating some centrifugal forces. We're not letting go of the bat, so it's not going off in some random direction, but the ball is. Okay, think of the bat as just an extension of your arm and your body. So we're getting the ball to go off in a tangent direction. So where it's pitched or whatnot. So we're going to see the barrel chase the ball, and we're going to follow that out, and then eventually, yeah, we're going to get back to rotational again, where that barrel's going to follow its way around. Golfers do this all the time. For you golfers out there, you get at the range, you have a dowel rod that's about 2 feet long, you set it out in front, and you set your ball up here, and then what your objective is to take your club head and to keep it perpendicular to that dowel rod that's on the ground. So as you go here, and then you go bam, and then you're going to keep that club face perpendicular to that line as long as possible in the direction of your target, and then it's going to circle around. So golfers do the same thing. So if you picture that on an outside pitch, you follow that same line in that direction for a right-hander. Inside pitch, same direction here. Up the middle, kind of same direction here. So the swing is both. It's not. So if we're looking at recapping this rotational versus linear hitting mechanics video and answering the reader question of what is the best to teach, a rotational swing or linear, the swing is actually both and then some. We talked about conserving linear momentum into angular momentum, or turning momentum, twisting, rotation, whatever you want to call it. We talked about the 3 different planes of motion, front to back, side to side, and twisting motion, and which 2 that hitting is. We talked about the difference between centripetal and centrifugal forces, and how one's center seeking, the other is center fleeing. And then we talked about how the swing at the end, we want the barrel to chase the ball. So the swing is not purely rotational, not purely linear. It's a hybrid of both, but it actually starts linear, goes angular, or goes rotational, then it goes linear again. And then a rotational again if you want to finish off with the finish of the swing. So make sure that we're swinging smarter by moving better. And before I let you go,
the Hitting Performance Lab wants to know, did you know that you may be losing out on 8 miles per hour of average bat speed because of one commonly taught hitting technique? Have you ever heard the coaching terms, squish the bug, squish out the cigarette butt? Well, we created a free video revealing the results of a scientific study that will show you how we added an average of 8 miles an hour to average bat speed by doing the exact opposite of squishing the bug. Click here now to get the video while it's still free.